I was working at the factory for 12 hours straight that day. My body ached, my mind was numb, and my hopes were fading. At 32, I was still living with my parents, drowning in $60,000 of student debt. When I stopped at the gas station and bought that lottery ticket, it was pure desperation. When the numbers matched, my hands trembled, my heart raced. I could not believe my eyes. $800,000. I rushed home to share my joy with my family. Their reaction: give half to your brother or get out. Before I tell you about the biggest shock of my life, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like button if you would react the same way I did. Life had always been a struggle for me. As the oldest child in my family, I learned to be independent from an early age. While other kids were enjoying their weekends playing video games or hanging out with friends, I was mowing lawns, delivering newspapers, and taking any odd job I could find. By 16, I was working part-time at a local grocery store, saving every penny for college. My parents never had much money, but what little they had seemed to flow more freely toward my younger brother, Andrew. He was 8 years younger than me, and from the day he was born, the family dynamic shifted. My childhood toys were handed down to him, but his toys were always new. My clothes were thrift store finds, but he got the latest styles. I never complained, because I understood our family financial situation, or at least I thought I did. When it came time for college, I received minimal support. I took out substantial loans, worked 2 jobs, and still barely scraped by. I ate ramen noodles for dinner more nights than I care to remember. Meanwhile, Andrew was promised full tuition when his time came. My parents explained that they had learned from my struggles and were determined to give him a better start. After graduation, I moved back home temporarily to save money. That temporary arrangement stretched into years as I battled my student loan debt. Every month, I dutifully paid $1,000 toward my loans, which still left me with a hefty $60,000 balance. Living at home was not ideal for someone in their 30s, but the financial math made sense. I paid a small amount for rent and groceries, much less than I would pay for my own place. My job at the manufacturing plant was grueling. The factory floor was always too hot in summer and too cold in winter. The noise was constant, the pressure relentless. I operated a metal stamping machine that required intense concentration. One moment of distraction could result in serious injury. Despite these conditions, I never missed a shift and frequently volunteered for overtime. My supervisor, Frank, appreciated my work ethic and hinted at a potential promotion. That gave me hope that perhaps my financial situation might improve soon. I calculated that with a pay raise, I could potentially move out within a year. Andrew, now 24, had graduated from college debt-free thanks to my parents. They had also bought him a used car as a graduation present and were helping with his apartment rent while he attempted to launch a startup business that seemed to constantly change direction. One week it was a social media app, the next week it was custom t-shirts. Nothing seemed to stick, but my parents remained his biggest cheerleaders. Our relationship was cordial but distant. Andrew rarely called unless he needed something, and our conversations at family gatherings were superficial. We had different friends, different interests, and increasingly different values. I valued hard work and self-reliance. Andrew seemed to value convenience and instant gratification. That fateful day at work, I heard rumors about layoffs. My colleague Teresa, a single mother of 2 who had been with the company for 15 years, was let go without warning. As I watched her clean out her desk, a cold fear gripped my heart. If the company could discard a dedicated employee like Teresa, none of us were safe. What would happen to me if I lost my job? How would I pay my loans? Where would I live? After my shift, I stopped for gas and on impulse bought a lottery ticket. I rarely gambled, considering it a waste of hard-earned money, but that day I needed some hope, however slim. I tucked the ticket into my wallet and forgot about it until the drawing 2 days later. When I checked the numbers on my phone, I had to sit down. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. 6 matching numbers, $800,000. After taxes, it would be around $560,000. Not enough to retire, but enough to change my life completely. I could pay off my student loans, buy a modest condo, and have enough left to invest for the future. For the first time in my adult life, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. My friends were ecstatic when I told them, My best friend Jake insisted on buying me a beer to celebrate. My coworker Mia hugged me and made me promise not to forget the little people when I became rich. Everyone seemed genuinely happy for me, and their reactions made my good fortune feel even more special. With high spirits, I drove home that evening, eager to share my news with my family. I imagined their proud smiles, their congratulations, maybe even a special dinner to celebrate. I had no idea that my lucky day was about to become the most revealing moment of my life. I announced my win during dinner that night. The initial reaction was exactly what I had hoped for. My mother gasped, dropped her fork, and immediately came around the table to hug me. My father, usually stoic and reserved, broke into a rare smile. For a brief, shining moment, everything was perfect. Then my mother returned to her seat and said the words that would change everything. Her voice was casual, matter-of-fact, as if she were commenting on the weather. "Carlos, this is wonderful news. Now you can help your brother with his business venture. He only needs about $400,000 to really get things going." I laughed, thinking she was joking. When nobody joined in my laughter, I realized she was serious. My father cleared his throat and spoke up, something he rarely did during family discussions. "Your mother is right, son. This is a perfect opportunity for you to help Andrew get on his feet. You always said you wanted him to be successful." The food on my plate grew cold as the conversation heated up. I tried to explain that, while I was happy to help Andrew, in some way, half of my winnings was excessive. I had plans for that, money plans, that would finally give me the financial freedom I had worked toward for years. My mother reached across the table and patted my hand. Her touch was gentle, but her words were firm. "Carlos, you have been living here rent-free. Well, almost free. That small amount you contribute barely covers your food. We have supported you all these years. This is your chance to pay us back by helping your brother." I was stunned by her revisionist history. Rent-free. I had been paying them $800 monthly, which was below market rate, but hardly free. And I bought my own groceries, did repairs around the house, and even paid part of the utility bills when money was tight for them. I tried to stay calm as I reminded them of these facts. I also pointed out that Andrew had received far more financial support throughout his life than I ever had. While I took on crushing debt for my education, he graduated owing nothing. My mother dismissed my points with a wave of her hand. That was different. We had more money then. And Andrew has such potential. His business ideas are brilliant. He just needs capital to make them work. This is what families do, Carlos. We support each other. The conversation deteriorated from there. When I continued to resist, my mother called me selfish. My father, gaining confidence, suggested that perhaps my years of financial struggle had made me greedy and untrusting. The accusations hurt more than I wanted to admit. I decided to step outside for some fresh air before saying something I might regret. As I sat on the porch swing, my phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. "Congratulations, bro. Mom told me about your win. We need to talk about my business plan. This is going to change both our lives." His presumption irritated me. There had been no congratulations just for my sake, no acknowledgement of my good fortune, without immediately turning it toward his benefit. I did not reply to his message. When I returned inside, the atmosphere was tense. My mother had been crying, and my father looked grim. "We have discussed it," my father announced, "and we think it is best if you make a decision. Either you agree to share your winnings with Andrew, or you need to find your own place to live." The ultimatum hit me, like a physical blow. I had never imagined my own parents would throw me out over money that was rightfully mine. In that moment, something fundamental changed in my understanding of my family. The love I had always taken for granted suddenly seemed conditional. I did not immediately respond. Instead, I went to my room and began researching apartments online. By midnight, I had scheduled 3 viewings for the following day. I also contacted the Lottery Commission to confirm the process for claiming my winnings. They explained that I could either receive a check or have the funds transferred directly to my bank account. The next morning, the coldness at the breakfast table was palpable. My mother barely looked at me as she sipped her coffee. My father hid behind his newspaper. When I mentioned that I would be out for a few hours, neither of them asked where I was going. While touring apartments, I received a text from my mother informing me that Andrew would be staying with us for a few days while his apartment was being painted. The timing seemed suspiciously convenient. When I returned home that evening, Andrew was already settled in the guest room, his presence adding another layer of tension to an already strained household. Andrew cornered me in the kitchen later that night. His approach was more direct than our parents. "Look, I know Mom and Dad are being a bit heavy-handed about this, but seriously, what are you going to do with all that money anyway? My business plan is solid this time. I have contacts in the tech industry. This could be huge for both of us." I asked him pointed questions about his business model, his target market, his revenue projections. His answers were vague and filled with buzzwords that sounded impressive but meant little. It became clear to me that he had no concrete plan, just a sense of entitlement to my good fortune. Later that evening, I announced my decision to the family. I had found an apartment and would be moving out within the week. My mother burst into tears, accusing me of abandoning the family. My father shook his head in disappointment. Andrew stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. That night, as I began packing my belongings, I formulated a plan that would reveal the true nature of my family's intentions. The next day, I visited the Lottery Commission office and arranged for the winning funds to be directly deposited into my bank account. The process was surprisingly simple. I showed my identification, signed several forms, and provided my banking information. The agent explained that the funds would be available within 3 to 5 business days minus applicable taxes. On my way home, I stopped at a print shop and made a high-quality color copy of the lottery check they had ceremonially presented to me. It looked impressively authentic. This was the key to my plan. That evening, the tension in our house was thick enough to cut with a knife. My mother made my favorite meal, lasagna, in what I recognized as a last attempt to soften my resolve. During dinner, she reminisced about my childhood, telling stories that painted her and my father as endlessly sacrificing parents. Andrew chimed in with selective memories of times I had helped him with school projects or stood up for him against bullies. I recognized the manipulation for what it was, but played along, nodding and smiling at appropriate moments. After dinner, I made a show of taking the copy of the check from my wallet and studying it with a satisfied smile. Then I deliberately left my wallet on the kitchen table, while announcing that I needed to take a shower. Through the thin walls of our old house, I could hear the hushed, urgent conversation that erupted in the kitchen as soon as the bathroom door closed. I turned on the shower but did not get in. Instead, I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear their words over the running water. My mother spoke first, her voice a harsh whisper. "The check is in his wallet. He just left it there." Andrew's voice was eager, animated. "Is he really that stupid? This is perfect." My father sounded hesitant. "I do not know about this. It does not seem right." My mother cut him off. "Do not start growing a conscience now. He has made his choice. He is abandoning his family when we need him most. We raised him, sacrificed for him. That money should benefit this whole family, not just him." Their words cut deep, but they also confirmed what I had begun to suspect. Their interest was not in my happiness, or even in Andrew's success. It was simply about the money itself and the control they thought they should have over my life. I waited a few more minutes, then turned off the shower and quietly opened the bathroom door. Moving silently down the hall, I positioned myself where I could see into the kitchen without being seen. The scene that unfolded before me was both shocking and sadly predictable. My mother held my wallet open while my father removed the check. Andrew stood nearby, his face flushed with excitement. With trembling hands, my father unfolded the check and spread it on the table. Andrew pulled out his phone and took several photos of it. Then, in a move that confirmed their true intentions, my mother took the check and deliberately began to tear it into pieces. "This is what happens when you cross family," she said, her voice cold and unfamiliar to my ears. I could not contain myself any longer. I stepped into the kitchen, slow applause emanating from my hands. "Bravo!" I said. "What an amazing performance from all of you." The three of them froze their faces, portraits of shock and guilt. The torn pieces of the check lay scattered across the table, like evidence at a crime scene. Andrew's phone was still in his hand, the screen, showing the photo he had just taken. I continued clapping as I walked to the table. "You know what is really funny?" I asked, picking up one of the torn pieces. "The Lottery Commission does not even issue checks anymore unless specifically requested. The money was deposited directly into my account this morning. This, I gestured at the torn paper. This is just a copy I made. A test, if you will. A test that all of you failed spectacularly. The color drained from my mother's face. Andrew dropped his phone. My father sank into a chair, his head in his hands. The silence that followed was deafening. I could not help but laugh at their expressions. Not a joyful laugh, but the kind that comes when the absurdity of a situation crashes over you like a wave. All my life I had believed in the unconditional love of family. In a single moment that belief had been shattered beyond repair. You know what hurts the most, I said, my laughter subsiding. Not that you wanted the money. I expected that. What hurts is that you were willing to steal it to destroy it rather than see me have it. What kind of love is that? My mother found her voice first, already constructing a narrative where their actions were justified. We were just trying to teach you a lesson about family loyalty, she insisted. We never would have actually cashed it. I raised an eyebrow. So, taking photos of it was part of this lesson. Planning to cash it with mobile deposit. Were you, Andrew? Andrew looked away, unable to meet my eyes. My father remained silent, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I went to my room and finished packing my essential belongings. As I loaded my car, none of them offered to help or tried to stop me. My mother stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. They looked less like tears of remorse and more like tears of frustration at being caught and thwarted. Before driving away, I rolled down my window and delivered my parting words. The saddest part is that I would have helped you, Andrew. Not with half my winnings, but with something reasonable. I would have invested in a solid business plan if you had one, but you did not want a partnership. You wanted a handout. And you too, I turned to my parents, you taught him to expect it. That is the greatest disservice you have ever done him. With those words, I drove away from my childhood home, leaving behind not just my material possessions, but also the illusions I had held about my family. In the rearview mirror, I could see them standing in the driveway, growing smaller as I drove toward an uncertain but authentically mine future. The first few weeks on my own were challenging but exhilarating. I stayed in a modest hotel while finalizing the paperwork for my new apartment. It was nothing fancy, a one-bedroom unit in a secure building with good natural light and a small balcony. But it was mine, paid for, with my own money, with no strings attached. The day I signed the lease and received the keys felt like a second windfall, a freedom I had not known was possible. The lottery money arrived in my account as promised. My first action was to pay off my student loans in full. The feeling of submitting that final payment was indescribable, like setting down a heavy backpack I had been carrying for years. I also set aside money for taxes, knowing that proper financial planning was essential. With the advice of a financial advisor, I invested a significant portion of the remaining funds in a diversified portfolio. I was determined not to become one of those lottery winners who squandered their winnings within a few years. I wanted this money to provide security and opportunities, not just immediate gratification. I also allowed myself a few reasonable indulgences. I bought a reliable used car to replace my aging vehicle. I purchased new furniture for my apartment items I had selected myself, rather than hand-me-downs or thrift store finds. I even took a week off work and visited the Grand Canyon, a trip I had dreamed about since childhood but never thought I could afford. My parents began reaching out about a month after I left. First came text messages, hesitant and brief. "How are you? And hope you are well." Then came voicemails, my mother's voice strained with forced cheerfulness. "Just checking in, sweetheart. Give us a call when you can." Andrew took a different approach. He sent an elaborate apology via email filled with self-reflection that seemed copied from a self-help book. He claimed to have realized his entitled attitude and promised to change. The email ended with a business proposal more detailed than before, but still fundamentally flawed. I did not immediately respond to any of them. I needed time to process my feelings and decide what kind of relationship, if any, I wanted with my family moving forward. I sought help from a therapist, something I had never considered before. Those sessions helped me understand that while I could not change my family, I could set healthy boundaries. During this period of reflection, I also made positive changes in other areas of my life. I enrolled in evening classes to enhance my professional skills. I joined a hiking club and made new friends who knew nothing about my lottery win or family drama. I began volunteering at a financial literacy program for high school students, teaching them the money management skills I had learned the hard way. After 3 months of minimal contact, I agreed to meet Andrew at a coffee shop. He arrived early, an unprecedented event that signaled he was taking the meeting seriously. He looked different, more subdued than I remembered. Our conversation was initially awkward, filled with small talk about the weather and local sports teams. Eventually, we addressed the elephant in the room. I asked him directly why he had felt entitled to my winnings. His answer surprised me with its candor. "I guess I always expected things to be handed to me," he admitted. "Mom and Dad made everything so easy. I never had to struggle like you did. When I heard about your win, it just seemed like another thing that should naturally flow my way." For the first time, I saw my brother as a product of our parents' behavior rather than inherently selfish. They had raised him to expect assistance, never requiring him to stand on his own feet. In a strange way, my financial struggles had given me something valuable that he lacked: independence and resilience. I did not offer him money, but I did offer something that proved more valuable. I connected him with Jake, my friend, who ran a successful small business for mentorship. I helped him revise his resume and practice for job interviews. I shared books and resources that had helped me develop financial discipline. To his credit, Andrew embraced these opportunities. He secured an entry-level position at a marketing firm and moved to a more affordable apartment. Our relationship slowly improved based on mutual respect rather than financial expectations. He still had much to learn, but he was taking steps in the right direction. My parents proved more resistant to change. When I finally agreed to visit them, they had redecorated my old room, as if erasing my presence. The conversation was strained, with undertones of resentment on their part. They had constructed a narrative where I was the ungrateful son who had abandoned them in their time of need. Rather than argue, I simply stated my truth. "I love you both, but love should not come with conditions or price tags." What happened showed me that we need to build a different kind of relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than expectations. Over time, our interactions became less tense. We established a new normal, with clear boundaries that I enforced consistently. I visited for holiday meals, but maintained my separate life. I shared my successes with them, but did not seek their approval. A year after winning the lottery, I launched a small business of my own, a consulting firm that helped small manufacturers improve their operations. My experience at the factory, combined with my new education, gave me insights that proved valuable to clients. The business grew steadily, providing satisfaction that had nothing to do with my lottery winnings. I also established a modest scholarship fund for students from my old high school who demonstrated financial need and a strong work ethic. Each year, I personally reviewed applications and selected recipients. This giving back became one of the most rewarding aspects of my financial good fortune. Looking back on that fateful day when the lottery numbers matched, I realized that I had won something far more valuable than money. I had gained clarity about the people in my life and the values I wanted to live by. I had discovered my own strength and the importance of self-respect. The money could have torn my family apart permanently, but instead it revealed truths that needed to be faced. Andrew and I now have a more authentic relationship than ever before. My parents and I maintain contact with adjustments that protect my emotional well-being. The wounds have healed, leaving scars that remind me of important lessons but no longer cause pain. Sometimes the greatest gift is seeing people for who they truly are, even when that vision does not match what we hope to see. In standing my ground, I not only preserved my financial windfall, but also discovered my own value, which had nothing to do with dollars and cents. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have shared the money or stood your ground? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, please like and subscribe to my channel. Also, share this video with someone who might need a reminder about the importance of setting healthy boundaries even with family. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most valuable thing you can invest in is your self-respect.